Here he is. All right. So I'm sure everyone watching knows of Jimi Hendrix. This particular pressing is a sample, probably handed to a journalist or a radio station program manager in the hopes of creating some attention for this new artist named Jimi Hendrix. I'm not entirely sure what this would be worth because there's so few of these. My guess would be $2,000–$3,000 maybe, but to a Jimi Hendrix collector, this is the Holy Grail. I grew up in the Bay Area, in San Jose, Silicon Valley. I'm the youngest of four, so having older brothers and sisters, music, especially in the 70s, was just all over the place. It was the big social currency of which they dealt. I knew they liked Led Zeppelin, so as a kid, I must like Led Zeppelin. You know, so it kind of began very early on, just this absorption of music all the time. This is my first LP. It is really beat up, as you would expect a 50-year-old record, but it is extremely well loved and played. Shortly thereafter, I got Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. This record was played hundreds of times as a child. I was just a music fan. I would just go through, multiple albums each week. I just devour the liner notes. That was what I really kind of set my social schedule around. To me, the analog experience is much easier on my ears. I can listen for much longer periods of time. You sit down for 20 minutes and you listen to a record, then you have to reset and flip it and then start again. So there's a reset button somewhere in me that responds to that. But also, I don't get as fatigued listening to records. I believe if you're listening to digital music, quite often your brain is actually working on some of that math in the background. We may not realize it, but that is taking some sort of cycles, whereas enjoying the vinyl record format, to me, I can do that all day. This is one of the very first Black Sabbath records ever pressed. This particular record itself is a sample, probably handed to a journalist or a radio station trying to get them to pay some attention to this new band, Black Sabbath. Now, this record needs no introduction to record collectors. This is called the Beatles' Butcher Cover. This album was released but retracted within a day. And this is the holy grail for a lot of record collectors. Now, you can see the artwork, the picture of the Beatles, baby heads, cut up meat, quite a shocking photo, especially for the time. Now, in the United States, they printed up about 100,000 of these, and they had to destroy them all. This is one of the surviving Butcher covers. This is what's known as a third state. Other artwork was pasted on top of it, and someone carefully peeled it off to reveal the original photo. I would say probably first and foremost, the vintage record on Parramatta Road. Head and Shoulders, that is my first stop on my record journey in Sydney. And the guy there, Phil, really knows his stuff. He's like a doctor, and I go in there and quite often I'll ask him for a prescription, and he always comes through. I always feel better afterwards. This is amongst the first to come off the assembly line when AC/DC recorded the song Jailbreak. Nice to see how people used to personalize their records. That's part of the archaeological dig. It's like a cave painting, you know? You don't want to erase it. It's not just in terms of them selling records like Led Zeppelin's or Billie Eilish, but it's also the local artists. So you've got a lot of great local bands that, unfortunately, there's not as many spaces for local bands to be able to play and to be able to share their art. And so local record shops like Vintage Record in Annandale or Egg Records in Newtown, those are great places for those sort of bands and those sort of artists to be able to put out their product and be able to start gaining an audience. This is Nate, and you are listening to The Vinyl Guide.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of The Vinyl Guide. Today's episode marks 5 years since I've been doing this podcast. Yahoo!
I've always been interested in technology. In the Silicon Valley, you can't avoid it. Broadcasting as well. I used to own a recording studio and I did a lot of radio commercials and I spent some time on the radio as well. The Pipeline, 818 Pacific Avenue, still inside Pacific Garden Mall in Santa Cruz, So to me, the podcast is this intersection of all three: technology, broadcasting, and record collecting, which is why I started it. What were some of the records you had? What were some of the earliest memories you have around records of recorded music?
I think my first vinyl that I bought was Kiss Alive, the first Kiss album.
I mean, we have a huge audience around the world. I mean, tens of thousands of people tune in each week. We've got people from America and Brazil and all over Europe. I've got 2 listeners in Antarctica, which is interesting to me. I'm hoping they know each other. The fact that we have people all over the world responding to the podcast the way they do is it's incredibly humbling, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. This is an original pressing of John Coltrane Blue Train, and it sounds absolutely beautiful. This record was found in a flea market in Paris, France, for about $8, and it's currently worth more than my car. To prove I'm completely out of touch, here is a gramophone player from 1924, nearly 100 years old, an original gramophone. It still works. People don't run record stores to make millions of dollars. They run record stores because they have a passion for music and for sharing it. And so Record Store Day allows the community to, again, refocus on the importance of these sort of cultural hubs and go in there, support them, discover something new. Music is so important. I think it seems to be, especially with the pervasiveness of streaming and just audio everywhere, it tends to be taken for granted sometimes. And so people recognizing it's Record Store Day, able to go into a record shop, have a real conversation with the record store clerk or other shoppers, be able to get some information, some tips, some advice on the sort of music to pursue, things that will enrich their lives, I think is extremely important. So I'm absolutely in favor and very appreciative of Record Store Day.
Every time you call me.